All right, all right. Welcome back to another episode of The Mess in the Middle. And today I've got an old friend with me, but tons of experience. So she's going to definitely be able to fill in some of the gaps from a fellow marketer and entrepreneur that's been around as long as I have in this industry. So it should be a great conversation. So, Alyson, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I was going to interrupt your intro and just be like, who are you calling old? And
Yeah.
can we just pretend that we're only
Right.
old enough to have been doing this a few years, right?
Right? Oh, sister, if our experience was in dog years, I'm like 150 now.
I mean, look, it's bad enough in human years. Let's not add any multiplication
Yeah.
to it.
So how long have you been in the industry?
I've been writing since '07, so
Oh,
about almost 16 years in July.
wow.
I
Okay, and I
know.
started '09, two
So,
thousand
yeah.
nine.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, so tell everybody, I mean, I know about you, but let's
Yeah.
share with the audience a little bit about yourself.
Oh, so that's such a big question, right? And
Yeah.
it's so funny. This is probably going to be insightful as to who I am, but I I read a book a number of years ago that when you ask that question in a lot of countries that aren't the United States or that aren't very westernized, people talk about the things they love to do, whereas
Yeah.
in the more Western countries, we talk about our work. So I've been making a conscious effort to lead with what I
Good.
love.
Good. Please.
Yeah. So I live in Baltimore, Maryland. I have lived here my whole life. I am deep rooted. I have an amazing 7-year-old son. I have too many cats. I have 6 cats.
Boy.
Yes. And they are very needy. I love to garden. I love my pond, all that stuff. And for work, I write sales copy. So
Okay.
I love to help business owners and entrepreneurs sell more of their stuff with marketing.
All right. So we know that there's a lot of different ways this podcast can go, but I want to
Yes.
focus on the mess in the middle and the whole premise. Now, you know
Mhm.
this as well as I do. Business owners get stuck kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
trudging through this experience of starting a business, growing a business, scaling the business. And it's not so much about do I give up or do I not give up, but it's more about what kind of skills do I need to develop as a business owner, as a human, as a
Mhm.
employer to be able to push through them to get me to whatever's next. So
Yeah,
why don't we start with a little bit maybe conversation of kind of your journey and how that is played in along the way?
for sure. Well, we can start all the way back at the beginning, back in '07 when I was ending my time as a college student. So I was an
Okay.
education major for a lot of years and I bounced to different specialties, but I was essentially double majoring in English and education with a minor in
Okay.
creative writing to be a high school English teacher. Through a set of circumstances, I ended up in a class with about 10 to 15 teachers who had been on the job for a decade or more. And I
Okay.
was the only one in the room that was happy. And that was
Ah,
my last semester as an education major, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to get out into the world. I'm going to see. I got what I call a big girl job, the kind with benefits and paid time off through an ad on
okay.
Craigslist before it was Creep Central.
Correct.
And
Right.
that was at Glazer Kennedy Insider Circle, which opened up the entire world of direct response marketing, info products, and all of the stuff we know and love. And I was hooked. So that's
Awesome.
how I fell into marketing completely.
Okay. So for those listening and we're not from our generation, what was GKIC back then?
Yeah, so GKIC basically, so Dan Kennedy is now partnered with Russell Brunson at
Right.
ClickFunnels. So I feel like, and Russell, I remember seeing Russell on the stage when he looked even younger than he does now.
I know.
So he was on the GKIC stage. So it's a lot of the same theories and strategies and things that ClickFunnels and Russell teach now, but it was known as like the place to be if you
Right.
were an entrepreneur that didn't want to do things the hard way,
What a
basically.
great way to put it. I never thought
Yeah.
of it that way.
Well, you can spend all of your time, money, effort, and energy trying to brand yourself, or
Yeah.
you can be intentional and smart about it. And that's what Glazer Kennedy was all about. So Dan Kennedy is an amazing copywriter. Bill Glazer's an amazing
Yeah.
copywriter. I got to learn from the best.
Okay, so that was your first big girl job, and
That was my first
how
big
that
girl job.
excuse me, how'd you transition from that?
So I was there. I started as an admin assistant, and 3 years later, when I left, I was the director of marketing. So it was kind of a
Nice.
meteoric rise. I've clearly had a passion for it, and I struck out on my own. I
Okay.
thought I'm ready to do this business thing. That lasted about a year, and I ran out of money.
Yeah,
So I
welcome
had
to
to
the
borrow money,
real world.
you
Yeah.
know. And that's part of the mess. Is sometimes there's what we can call a failure. I don't ever say I failed because I never stopped writing. I just ran out of money, and I ended up getting a job.
Okay.
So I got a job as a sales operations manager for a software company, which actually introduced me to the world of software as a solution. And I
Nice.
learned a lot about sales teams. I learned
Okay.
a lot about the processes and how
Mhm.
larger organizations have a lot of breakdown in between sales and marketing. And then, I'm not going to name any names, but there was somebody that was brought in to run the sales team that had kind of the good old boys club attitude sales
Ouch.
meetings. I was the one getting beverages. He shushed me in a meeting with marketing. I was a little offended, and I actually sent my notice in that day. So I started the business again. This time I had a husband with health insurance and an income. And that was in 2012. Since
Okay.
then, I have been writing full time.
Nice, nice. So the takeaway there is she didn't fail. She came from experience. And every time she leveled up to something
Yeah,
further that
a
would
thousand
get
percent.
her to a better place. We've all had to do that. I've gone in and out of being self-employed for a while, get a really great opportunity, take advantage of that for a
Mhm.
year or two, back out on my own. There's nothing wrong with that. Each
None.
time, sometimes we take a step back, sometimes we take, some lateral or some horizontal
Mhm.
steps, but as long as we continue moving forward, it'll keep showing itself as to what we should be working on. So you've been doing that. Now, what kind of clients do you typically work with?
Yeah. So I typically work with the coaches and experts. So people
Okay.
who sell knowledge and or transformation. And, those are the people that I outwardly market to. Those are the people that my content is created for.
Okay.
But I still love SaaS.
Do
And I
you?
still
Okay.
I love writing for SaaS. And one of the things that I love to do there is take oftentimes somebody who has this very technical idea of
Mm,
their baby, and I translate it into something that's going to matter for the consumer. And I've worked with some local businesses, home contracting, pest control. I mean, I've written for some of the randomest industries,
yeah.
jars, tape.
Yeah.
I've sold some really interesting things.
Nice. But that's good experience. I mean, that
Always.
the amount of knowledge that you've probably gained over that. Let's hop into that a little. I
Hmm.
know this isn't a marketing podcast per se,
Yeah.
but I know that the people listening, this is a huge challenge for them to get through. When somebody's first starting out and they've got an idea and they've got a passion as to why they started the business, but they can't get the market message right. What is the
Hmm.
best step for them other than going out and getting somebody to pull that content out of them? How
Right.
do they sit with themselves? Where would they start with that conversation?
For sure. And it's so funny. I actually just had a conversation with another copywriter, I believe last week. And so I'm going to make sure that I get her name right because I want to give her credit.
Okay.
I don't ever like to pretend that things are my idea.
Right.
Her name is Sarah Vartanian,
Okay.
Vartanian, for anybody
Good.
who is near a computer and wants to Google, but she calls it an online listening tour.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I do something very similar, but she puts together a very set sort of questions. And some of that does involve interviews with clients or prospects, but also visiting message boards, Facebook groups, industry articles, anything you can find that's going to give you insight into what the problems are that they're experiencing.
Yep.
So, an example that I have from, my own world is someone that I know is launching a life coaching business, and they're trying to do that with a month long thing. And enrollment was decent. They were pretty okay with it. It could have been better, I think, had it been positioned a little differently,
Okay.
right? So it was more about the get up, get fit kind of thing rather than had I been in charge, I would have talked about building a community of people who are going to support you and be with you along this journey that can be really hard to get started, right? We're going to take the
Yeah.
first step together. And so it's understanding that if I'm working to get up and get fit, the first step is the part that's really hard for me.
Right.
It's not the knowing what to do. It's
Sure.
not being able to find a workout plan. They're everywhere.
Right.
It's getting up.
Right.
And so really looking at the
Mhm.
problems that they're experiencing and how it's showing up for them in their daily lives.
That's a really good insight. I mean, if you think about it, you just said the technical stuff. Technical stuff's easy. I need a
Mhm.
process. I need a diet plan. I need a workout schedule. I
Exactly.
need the tools. That's all the technical stuff. But if you haven't actually addressed why I can't get that first step to put my shoes
Oh, yeah.
on, to get out the door, to
Mhm.
believe that I can actually make a difference. And that first step or those first 10 minutes working out specifically are going to make any
Right.
kind of difference in my day. I just
Exactly.
ate ice cream. What is 10 minutes working out going to do for me?
Right.
And it's understanding that mindset at that level. That's
It
great
is.
insight. I'm about 40 podcasts in, and I have to
Mhm.
say, every single one of them without fail has struggled with this first thing. We
Oh,
go,
absolutely.
yeah, everybody goes to the technical. So I'm going to launch a business. Let me build the
Mhm.
website and create the logo and set up the social media and set up my email
Mhm.
marketing and do all this stuff that I can control with a checklist. So I feel like I'm making progress. But then
Mhm.
6 months later, you have a bunch of stuff, but you have no traffic, you have no community, you
Right.
don't even know who you're selling to, and you can't get your message right for the market.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's funny because even that stuff there's
Yeah,
checklists for,
true,
right? How
true.
to build a Facebook community, you can find that. How to write copy, you can find or hire that. You can the issue is the brain stuff, the head
Yeah,
trash, as I call it.
yeah.
And, I've said probably on other guest spots that I've been on, I know I've said it on my own podcast, but it's not a coincidence that when I started my own personal therapy, income increased because I've been working for years on myself.
Yeah.
And what that does is that makes me more confident when I'm having my sales calls and confidence sells,
Yeah.
right? It's also helped me detach from the outcome. So I'm not coming off as desperate, which is a turnoff in every situation. And I'm also showing up more. I'm more consistent. And recently, I've been really undertaking the journey. So I'm neurodivergent, I have ADHD, and I'm really working on it. And I'm working on learning how to hack my own brain to kind of
Good.
quote unquote trick myself into getting more done
Good.
instead of waiting for that magical inspiration, which I think a lot of people really can struggle with is I'm
Mhm,
not feeling it today. So
mhm.
what do you do? Do you
Yeah,
push through anyway and have a lackluster day? Do you give yourself what I call a hall pass? Or do you figure out something else? It's that
yeah,
something else that I think is really that magic sweet spot for those days when we just don't feel it
yeah.
to still keep us moving forward, even if it's not the big quantum leaps that we want to be making that day.
That's good.
Yeah.
I've gotten to a place where I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing, but
Yeah,
it goes back to, training and lots of
hmm
books and lots of seminars and, uh,
absolutely.
you know, my degrees are in psychology and behavioral science.
Yep,
And
we get
then,
it.
yeah, and I had to figure out how do I handle all of this stuff.
Yeah,
I had 3 kids, I was divorced, so single parenting, being self-employed, how do you manage all these moving parts?
right,
And you're right. Some days I get 10 things done, some days I get 100 things done. But
right.
it's being able to manage me, my expectations, recognizing, I didn't sleep well. I'm
Right.
tired today and I have brain fog because I'm going through menopause and it
Oh,
sucks.
right.
So maybe I'm going to go outside for a run, or
Right.
maybe I'm going to work on something that is not deep work, but that doesn't require
Yes.
it's a task. So I could still make progress, but I don't have to be 100% there. And I'll
Right.
find other low brain activities that need to be done, but that don't require so much here when I'm not feeling it. And that's kind of how
Right.
I figured out how to balance that.
And it's funny for me. So there's the whole eat the frog thing where you just tackle the
Mhm.
hardest thing first. Well, that's not going to work for me. My ADHD is going to magnify that task until it's the worst thing in the world. And I'm not going to do anything. If that has to be my first thing for the day, I'm not going to do anything. And so you call them low brain tasks. I call them gateway tasks.
Oh, there you go.
I
Okay.
start with something low brain almost every day. Whether it's, I really shouldn't be doing this, but I love it, making a stupid graphic in Canva, which my designer yells at me for,
All right.
or, right, or
Yeah.
organizing something, or writing a quick little thing, or, maybe playing a little with Chat GPT to generate some blog ideas or something that is
Right.
low brain, but a little fun. And then I can eat that frog.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so you have to figure out how you work. I really
Yeah.
believe we all have these individual ways of working. I interviewed somebody yesterday who she was like, "No, you just do it." And I was like, "Yeah, no. Mm-mm, mm-mm." But that works for her.
Right.
And I also I talk to myself as if I have like 30 of me. So there's past Alyson, there's future Alyson, there's scared
Right.
Alyson, there's brave Alyson, all of that.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'm like, you know what? I really don't want to do this. I screw future Alyson over a lot. So I'm just going to take care of it now.
Good.
And so whatever works for you,
Yeah.
find it, spend the effort and energy to get it, and then implement it however it works in your life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A lot of us will listen to, I mean, that goes back to this whole YouTube and education. If you follow different kinds of gurus on there, this guy says this, and Alex Hormozy says this, and
Oh, yeah.
Brian Tracy says this, and that's fine. What those are there for is not for you to copy or try to blueprint or try to mimic. What
Mhm.
you're there to do is say, okay, here are options. Here are things for me to look at. What works in my life with my
Right.
family, with my friends, with my children or significant other, with my work, with how I'm trying to show up on this
Mhm.
planet. Find something that resonates with you. I tried in my probably late 20s to fit the way people said you're supposed to fit. And I
Oh,
was
yeah.
so incongruent with it. And I forced and forced. And then I beat myself up for not fitting. And then I beat
Right.
myself up for not being okay with that model of existence. I wasn't meant to. I was never meant
Right.
to be a person that had balance in their life. I'm always going
Yeah.
to be a person that works a lot. I'm okay with that. It's because that's the way I choose to live. But,
Right.
for other people, they had issues with it. It's find your lane. Those are
Mhm.
just examples. Those are just
Right.
practices to show us what it could look like. But take a
Right.
piece of each one of those, like Alyson just said, and make it work for you. There's nothing on this planet that says you have to fit here. You have to do these 12 things if you want to end up being like Gary Vee. You're never going to
Right.
be like Gary Vee because he's a different person. We're all
No,
different.
that's right.
So we
Yeah,
embrace that difference and let that evolve to who you're supposed to be.
absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
and, there's a book, and I was gonna Google it real quick, but I'm talking. It's called The One Thing, and it
Yeah.
came out
Yeah, yeah,
forever
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
I have it on
Yep,
my bookshelf, but
yep.
in there, he has a graphic, and, like, you have your line down the middle, and that's balance. But the line, like, the actuality of it is just a zigzag.
Right.
Sometimes it's like 100% work because you're launching something, or the website crashed and you have to fix it, or this client thing is due, or whatever. And then other times it's, your kid's class picnic, or you vacation, or you're just tired. And so the line goes the other way. It's okay to bounce back and forth. It doesn't have to be this amazing work life balance. It's your balance,
Mhm.
whatever works for you.
Right. it's so important to remember that. The other thing that everybody falls short on is I'm trying to fit to be in this Alex Hormozy, and I'm going to use him as
Mhm.
an example,
Yeah,
just not to pick on him, but because I love his stuff. But
right.
he puts out a YouTube video that says, this is how to produce content.
Mhm.
But what he doesn't put in it to it is he spends $40,000 a month. He has 5 people doing it. He does this, he does
Right.
that. He's at a different place along that journey. And again, I don't
Mhm.
those numbers, I just
Right, of
hypothetically
course.
picked them out of the
Right, but he
sky,
has a
but
team, he has help, he has the
correct,
time, he has the schedule, he
correct.
has someone to do all of the stuff,
For him,
and all
correct.
he has to do is focus on the content creation itself, and you can mimic that. I've taken those ideas and mimicked them in I have a part-time designer, I have a part-time VA. Okay, I can use, and then of course AI has been a game changer. So
Yeah.
what do? Right? I can go into it now. I don't, you know, Gary, let's say Gary V, he's like, okay, you do this one thing, you chunk it up into 82 different videos. And no, here's what I do, right? I give ChatGPT a blog post title and a little bit of a description, and I ask them to write me an outline. I take that outline, I paste it into a Google Doc, I edit it, and then I get my phone and I use my voice memo thing. I record based on that. I load that transcript back into GPT, have it write.
Mm.
I take it back out, I edit it, put my voice on it, and then send it to my VA and my designer for the posts and the graphics and stuff. Right. But I've created a piece of content. I did it in a way that works for my brain.
Yeah.
I get the help with the brainstorming I need. I get help with organization. I still put me in it. Is it 82 videos, 621 social posts, and an hour-long YouTube video? No, but it's a piece of content that got created that otherwise wouldn't.
Right,
And so I think that a lot of times we think if I'm not doing it to this level, it's not worth me doing at all.
right.
That's a really big misconception.
For sure,
If
for
I
sure.
don't have a list of 10,000 email subscribers, it's not worth building a list.
Starts
I've
with
made,
1.
well, and you know what? I have hashtag brag. I have a 6-figure business with under 1,000 people on my email list. You don't need it. You just have
Right,
to have the right people.
right,
You have to do the right thing. And the right thing, a lot of times, is the stuff that you're actually going to do.
right. Definitely
Because
starts with that.
the hour-long video to the chunks, to the socials, to the blog, I'm not going to do it. So it doesn't matter how great of a plan it is or how effective it is or how popular he is for doing it. I'm
Right.
not going to do it.
And it's okay.
It's totally cool because I'm not that person.
Right. Well, I think that whole comparison thing kicks in, but I
Oh my
should be
goodness.
doing it. If I
Oh
want
my
to be
goodness.
successful, it has to look like that for it to work, which is not true. It doesn't have to look like that.
Oh, no.
Allison just told you she has a list of 1,000, still tremendously successful. It
Mhm.
looks like however you are willing to do it.
That's
Period.
right. And it's so easy to fall into that. Oh my gosh, I look at these Instagram profiles of these copywriters and they have all this engagement and they do this, that, and the other. And I sit here in my own little lizard brain jealousy world and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's not
But you're
me.
but you're not going to be that person. So
No.
give yourself permission to not be somebody else that you're not and just be who
Yes.
you are. Embrace it instead of looking at it like I'm failing because I can't force myself to be like them. Maybe say, okay, I'm not going to compare. I'm just
Mhm.
going to say, what strengths do I have? What are my
Right.
assets? What makes me unique? How can I serve or help somebody with the skills I have and that I'm congruent with? One of the real quick story, one of the biggest things I have seen over the last 15 years is people that beat themselves up on a daily basis for not doing video.
Mhm.
I have to do video if I want to be successful. And I'm like,
Mhm.
but so what type of person? Oh no, I'm an introvert. I don't like
Right.
video at all. And I'm like, then why are you setting yourself up for failure? You just told me you're an introvert and you're never
Uh-huh.
going to do video.
Mhm.
Let that shit go. Let it go.
Right.
Let it
Right.
go.
I'm an ambivert. Okay. So I get energy from people, but I have a hard limit on it, right? The energy caps out and then it starts to drain.
Mhm.
Which is why if we ever see each other at a conference, you won't see me by day 3. I'm out.
Yeah.
My charm runs out
Tapped
at day
out.
2.5. That's just what it is. Day 2.5, I'm out of charm and I'm out, right? So I know that I need to set my weeks up to allow myself that recharge time. And so I have my writing time. And then my Wednesdays is I call it biz dev, but it's really just therapy and self care. And then the end of the week is my visibility.
Okay.
And that's when I'm doing, and of course we record this on a Monday. So I'm going against the grain here, but I'm producing an event, a summit. So I'm doing a lot
Oh,
of interviews and the calendar's wide open. But it's you set your calendar up to work with what you know is
mhm.
going to be the best thing for you. I know that Wednesdays, I'm no good. I've got therapy that day. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't know if my therapist is going to choose violence that day and how I'm going to be after. So I'm not going to schedule a video, right? I've got my life in there. I figure it
Good.
out. I
Good.
also know that Monday and Tuesday I've got extended hours because my
Mm.
son's with his father. So I'm good to work late. No
Right.
problem.
It all works. If you allow yourself to set up a plan for you. Remember, getting
Mhm.
into business at the beginning, there were jobs I didn't want to take
We all
because
did.
it was revenue. I worked with clients I didn't love. I did
Mhm.
things that I swore I was never going to do. Like, I'm only going to offer social media,
Mhm.
and then you do social media and somebody asks you to build a website. It's like,
I was
okay,
gonna
I'll
say,
do that
I'm
website.
only gonna write copy, and all of a sudden I'm building a website.
That's
Why is that the
it.
thing?
Because well, that's a whole another conversation because all of our marketing works like this and
It
not like
does.
this. But we all at the beginning, we all do that, right? We're
Mhm.
hustling, we're doing stuff, we're appreciative of the stuff that we get access to and the
Of
people that are
course.
willing to trust us with their product or their service. But at the same time, you still have to have some boundaries in there as to how you're going to show up. Otherwise, you built this business that you're not congruent with. And then 3
Mhm.
years later, you're like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I even here? I don't like any of
Right.
the stuff that I'm doing. And it just
Yep.
snowballed into something that you shouldn't be doing to begin with. So slow down for a second.
Mhm.
Go back to the what kind of person am I? What brings me joy?
Yep.
Now, it's not that this whole thing is gonna be joy, because there's definitely gonna be
No.
challenges and things that
Of
you don't
course.
love, but try to align it with yourself. And the reason why it's so important, because 5 years down the road, if you haven't done that, you will implode that business.
And so I think, maybe a year and a half ago,
Yeah,
I was real close
to
to
blowing it up.
just blowing the whole thing up and choosing a new model. I still wanted to be in business for myself, but I
Okay.
wanted to do something different. And luckily, I had a friend say, hold and consider. And so I didn't blow it up, which, is fine. But it did help me realize that there was something that needed to go, something that
Yeah.
needed to change, something that needed to give. And I ended up going to a Fabienne Fredrickson event.
She's
And
awesome.
oh, she's wonderful. And,
Mm.
full disclaimer, she was a client at the time. So I went to the event to,
Yep.
schmooze the
Yep.
client.
Yep.
And she had this worksheet that instead of asking you to plan, like, how much money do you want to make in a year? How much this, right? It was, what do you want to feel? What do you want your day to look like? And it was a switch for me because I had never thought about goal setting in that way. And it helped me realize, okay, this is what I'm feeling now that I don't love.
Mhm.
And here's where that's coming from versus what I want to feel. Now let's intentionally go find or make that. And it helps to kind of reinvigorate the passion because a lot of times we start a business, but we really start a job.
Mhm.
And Glazer Kennedy was my longest job other than this business. So it can get to be a little bit of a slog,
Yeah.
but you find ways to make sure that it's fulfilling those needs personally,
Mhm.
whatever they are, work more, work less, what have you, and design it that way on
Yeah.
purpose.
This podcast has been a little bit more for kind of targeting people that are in business.
Mhm.
And the point of it is to show that even when things are going right, business wise, financially, your business is
Oh, yeah.
growing, you still are going to run into these kind of things that come
Mhm.
up. Am I doing the right
Absolutely.
thing? Am I still loving what I'm doing? Am I stuck in tasks? Like, am I that technical
Mhm.
person that's moved to the manager and now I'm just a manager of the business? These are things that'll continually come up as you evolve through this entrepreneurial journey.
Mhm.
The goal is not just to break it and start all over again in something else that you'll be excited and passionate about. Sometimes it's just reassessing it. Like Allison said, what do I
Absolutely.
really love about this? What is good about it that keeps me wanting to serve? And maybe it's reassigning tasks. Maybe,
Mhm.
50% of what you do every day, you don't want to do anymore. But being able to only focus on the other 50 will bring you
Right.
back and excited.
Right.
Or it could be it's time to sell it and move on, and that could
Or
be an option too.
figure out how to delegate more of it. If you are in
Yeah,
that manager role and you're like, I want to do something and create something, okay, great. How much time does managing really take you? And you start something else too,
on the
right? So
side.
that's on
Yep,
my list for the year.
good,
I've got some other passions. I want to play. I'm calling it play because you never know. I want to
yeah,
play. I want to
good.
try some things. So I'm going to do it.
Do it.
Why not? And it's getting me excited about all of it again. Yeah.
It's still in the copywriting space?
No, direct to
Good.
consumer
Oh,
products.
interesting.
I wanna make some
Good.
products and see what I can do in the e-com space, and I'm looking at it as an I've played in it before with some
Mhm.
clients, but I wanna learn it, and I've got some friends another copywriter friend of mine is actually killing it right
Nice.
now with a non-competitive product, and I'm learning a lot from his,
Oh,
conversations
he
with him
shows
and
up.
stuff, so, yeah.
That's really good. There's always room for us to add other things. I mean, people say it all the time, diversify your income. As we go into the different who knows how the economy is gonna flush out with election coming up, with Chat GPT being part
Don't
of this
stress me out. Yeah.
conversation. But how are
Right?
you diversifying? Are you paying
Exactly.
attention? Is your industry changing where, we're seeing like the biggest impact I'm seeing is one, marketers for sure.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter where you're at in that chain, the
Doesn't matter.
conversations are changing.
Mhm.
And then coaches, high-end coaches. I'm starting to see people question like, yeah, maybe I don't need to spend that 10 grand right now. I'm going to start here and do a little bit more pre-work before I'm ready to buy. Before it was just, I need it fast tracked and buy because I
Right.
need to get to the source of that information. There's other
Right.
sources now. So it's a little different conversation.
It is, and
Yeah,
I think, if this was a marketing podcast, we could probably talk for a couple hours
I
on
know.
what those coaches could do to rise above, but really, I think what it was triggered for me earlier when we were talking about the experience and learning from different things and, like when I worked at the software company, how I learned and took away from that. You have the opportunity to do that with
Yeah.
everything, right? I mean, there are just Google marketing Disney World, and you will find blogs of people
Uh,
who have gone to Disney on vacation and looked at the marketing. Look at what people around you are doing. Look at how people are setting up their businesses. I
mhm.
don't care if it's in person, a friend, TV, an influencer you follow. What are they doing that you like that one thing? We talked about taking that one
Yeah.
thing, right? I love the idea of taking a video that you record, maybe a podcast, and finding a way to repurpose it.
Mhm.
I think I saw somebody else do it. They had their podcast as like they were a guest on their blog. They wrote a whole blog post about it. I
Mhm.
loved that.
Mhm.
So that's what I do. I take the podcast feed, I put it in a Spotify player, I write a blog post, I throw it on my website. Now I have a blog post.
Good.
One little thing, I don't remember who I swiped that from, but I did it there. And then you can do X, Y, and Z from over here or this from over here. And you build your thing, but it's not all just from your industry. That idea
Right.
didn't come from a copywriter, it came from somebody else.
Yeah.
So don't just look at whatever industry you're in for
Mhm.
inspiration and ideas. Look outside of it And what can you take? How can you translate it? Become a student of marketing,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to find a lot of fun.
What do you say?
With it.
So I'll go with that for a second.
Yeah.
So everybody that I talk to that is not in our industry does not want to become marketers.
No, you want to be the
No.
expert at your thing.
Right.
Okay.
So what do you tell
Very lovingly,
them?
I'm going to tell you,
Oh,
something
shit.
snarky, and I'm going to say it very lovingly, right? If all you want to do is your thing,
Mm-hmm.
cool, go get a job. I
Yeah.
love you. Go get a job. Running your business requires that you run the business. And
That's all.
part of that is being in charge of the marketing. And it's very tempting to say, I'm going to outsource my marketing and just have them bring me leads. And okay, cool. Don't do that. That's
Don't do
terrifying
that.
because that's your financial future that
Yeah.
you are willingly putting into someone else's hands. Outsource pieces of it, be involved,
Mm-hmm.
know what good copy looks like, that you know when you're getting bad copy from your copywriter.
Mm-hmm.
Know what good ads look like. So you
Mm-hmm.
know if your ad agency is carrying their weight. Know
Yeah.
what a good website does so that you know if yours is up to par. Understand the concepts, and then you can outsource the pieces. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately the buck stops with you.
Great.
Lovingly, respectfully.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Do what I say.
Suck it up.
Yeah.
Put your big girl panties on.
Yeah. That's the world I come from.
Me too.
I talk about it all the time. The clients that are able to get it off the ground, that start making some money, that start figuring out what it needs, the minute they get a little bit of money there, they want to delegate it. But here's the challenge. I have gone into so many companies over the year where they had extra disposable income. So they
Okay.
hire an expert.
Right.
And that expert tells them a bunch of marketing, blah, blah, blah. And they get written a $5,000, $10,000 check to get started. 3 months down the road, the business owner has spent $20,000, $30,000.
With
Really
nothing to show.
no further, in their business. And then they play the victim.
Right.
So and so took advantage of me. It doesn't work. It's not good. I spent all this money. I didn't get any results. But I push back a little bit because you're responsible for your business and it's your fiduciary responsibility to manage your money and the people that you hire. So, yes, if you want to task out your marketing after you get to a place where you're generating some revenue, it's your responsibility to hire properly. You don't, I get it. You don't want to do it. Most business
No,
owners don't,
I don't want to
but
do it.
I don't want to do it. And I do marketing for a living. I don't want to
I
do
want
it.
to sit on a beach and drink umbrella drinks while some guy with an umbrella, a fan
And
waves
you,
at me. But nobody's going to pay me for that.
no.
If
And
you
you
got to do
can't,
it.
right. And you can't hire incorrectly and then complain, I was ignorant or I didn't know what to do. It's your job to figure it out, task it out. That's great. But you better know what you're contracting. So here's something that I always do. When I build marketing strategies for people, I start at the top and work my way down. Typically, businesses start at the bottom and work up.
Mhm.
So if I'm at the bottom, the example would be I'm moving along. I need to start doing SEO for my company. So
Right.
let me go hire an SEO person
Mhm.
and they're going to come in and they're going to take care of everything that I need done in the silo of SEO. Now,
Right.
here's the challenge with that. Your SEO person didn't talk to your social media person. That's not talking to your copywriting person. That is not talking to the person that's responsible for posting content. So you have
Mhm.
all these plates spinning, but none of it's working together. But you
And
spent all that money because you wanted that
Mhm.
expertise. Here's a
Right.
different solution. Start at the top. My goal with my marketing is to generate 100 new leads a month. And out of those 100 leads a month, this is how we're going to use. We're going to use social media, we're going to use SEO as a long game, and we're going to use email marketing. You've created the strategy with how it's going to go, what the goals are, how you're going to track the results from it.
Mhm.
Then who you hire is irrelevant because, I mean, they have to know the job. You don't
Right.
have to have an A player anymore. You could have a B or a C player because they just have to follow the plan you've already created across the board because everybody's following a plan. And now
Mhm.
you're working through a marketing system
Correct.
and that will work. Doing it the other way, every time something falls,
Uh,
something doesn't work.
yeah. I will say you wanna hire the best that you can,
Mm,
right? Don't just go for lowest price, please.
correct.
And I say
Skill
this
is
as
more
someone.
important.
Yeah, I mean, and I say this as someone who I'm not cheap. I'm not the most expensive, but I'm definitely not the cheapest. So
Yeah,
it it matters the experience and the ability and the fit.
correct.
Um the thing that I would add to that is all of the silos that you mentioned, the website and the social and the day-to-day operations and the marketing, none of them were talking to the sales team,
Right.
right? So a lot of times in businesses, the silos are the problem, like you
Yeah.
just said. And let's say we've got marketing, the marketing department and the sales team.
Yes.
Well, the marketing department's like, what's wrong? We're sending 300 leads a month. We're doing
Right.
our job. And the sales team's like, yeah, every single one of them sucks.
Right. They're not
Well,
a customer. Right.
they're not going to make the sales, but then it looks like it's the sales team's fault. It's not. It's actually marketing's issue.
Right.
So really make sure that, and
Yeah.
that's why it's so, so, so important that you be the marketer of your business. And if you
Yeah.
don't want to do it, lovingly get a job.
I love that. I'm definitely going with that one. I mean, not everybody's cut out for this,
And
and
that's okay.
that's okay. It doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean
No.
it's just not everybody can do this. And you really do need to sit down at that very beginning and just say,
Mhm,
can I dig in to every single aspect of this? Bookkeeping,
mhm.
sales, marketing,
Yep.
operations, the website, IT. I mean,
Mhm.
you've got to be able to get in enough to get this to revenue. Now, yes, when revenue starts coming in, your conversation and your options do change, but
Of
then it comes
course.
in with a whole nother level of
Mhm.
responsibilities as you as a business owner. You're not going to see everything coming. I mean, I
Yeah.
still see stuff creep in that I did not expect, even after all these years. But we just get better at saying, oh, that kind of sucked. I didn't see that one coming. Okay, so how do I get through it? What are my typical go to skills to work through it? Do I need to take a break? Do I need to talk
Mhm.
to a peer? Do I
Right?
need to hire a consultant to come in and give me
Mhm.
some advice? What does that look like?
Right?
Start building a toolbox of resources that you can tap into when challenges come up, and
Absolutely, and
that will
some of them are
serve
gonna
you.
sneak up, some of them are gonna
Yeah.
sneak up, and some of them are gonna slap you upside the face. That's just how it is. I mean, we wanna talk global, right? None of us saw that coming. None of us saw a complete, what,
Shut
2.5 year
down.
shutdown that completely changed the face of business permanently. None of us saw that coming. Okay. Okay. What are you gonna do?
Right,
It
right.
happened.
We're
And that's
done.
kind of the attitude that we have to build, and it takes time. And, we talked about at the very beginning, like one of the greatest strengths that you can have in business is that resilience
Mm,
to, I, so when I'm super stressed, I have what I call big girl breakdown,
okay.
and I have my emotions, and I have all of my feelings, and I spiral, and I guilt, and I shame, and I get mad, and I have all the Ben and Jerry's in the world and all of this. I have my big girl breakdown. But then the next morning,
Yeah,
I get up and I get to work.
yeah,
It's okay to have
yeah,
feelings. It's okay to feel overwhelmed and anxious and afraid and frustrated and
yeah.
scared. Get up the next morning and get to work
Get to
because
work.
that resilience is a muscle. Every little upset, every little thing is an opportunity for you to say, I'm going to exercise this muscle or I'm going to let it go to waste.
Yeah.
So exercise it. And I have feelings, Allison, and I have resilient Allison. Okay. And sometimes feelings Allison needs to be locked on the other side of the office door with the cats to go have her feelings and
Yeah.
wallow because it's time for resilient Allison to get to work.
I love that. That is, hey, you know what? We find whatever helps us
Whatever
get
works.
through it. I mean, I haven't had one in a really long time, but when I run into challenges, I'll
Mhm.
say, okay, you know, we're going to have a pity party and it's going to
Yeah,
last for 2 days. And then after that, you pack that up and you move on because we got
that's
stuff
right.
to do.
That's right. That's why I call it my big girl break.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have little cry sessions.
Yep.
These are the big girl breakdowns where you're
Yeah.
questioning your whole life. They
Yep.
don't happen that often, but you have it.
Yep.
And sometimes that's I look at it as a reset,
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
setback,
Yeah.
right? Like this has been building and building and building, and I finally just unleashed the flood of big girl breakdown, and now I'm back.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Whatever you have to do. And I can't be a bigger proponent of therapy.
Yeah.
Whether or not you have something going on, whether or not, I'm very open about my neurodivergence. I've struggled with depression since I was like 8. So, I'm very open
Stuff
about
happens.
that. It's a thing. So whether or not you have that, or you're just like, you know what, I want to be the best version of myself, find someone that you can talk to and that can help you work through that. It might be a therapist, it might be a life coach, it might be both. There are
Yeah.
some people who have like 4 or 5 different people that they talk
Right.
to.
Right.
It will pay off.
It will. Well, and then just to kind of wrap that in a bow, you can learn all the skills you want. You
Mhm.
can become a technical person. You can even
Yep.
learn the marketing. But guess what? You can have that whole beautiful system that we just spent 5 minutes talking about.
Right.
If this thing's not in the right
If
place,
your brain
none of this stuff is going to matter because you're not going to be
that's
able to
right.
sustain it because you're going to constantly have fear and doubt and depression and
Mhm.
overwhelm and joy. And it's almost like being manic is being an entrepreneur.
It's
Seriously. And I made a
absolutely.
sale. Oh God, I haven't had any
Oh,
sales in 30 days. Oh my gosh,
right.
I'm changing the world. Oh my gosh.
There is that. It's definitely not a straight
Yeah.
line. It's,
Yeah.
there's been that image circulating Facebook for a couple years now about that. And that's why resilience is so important because it does help you.
Yeah.
You're still going to have your highs and your lows, but they won't be as high and they won't
Yeah.
be as low,
Yeah.
right? It's
Right.
still, you're going to be able to just stay the course. And then you're going to look at that outlook begin to change instead of a failure. It's a ran out of money situation. You're going to change your language. You're going to
Yeah.
change the way that you see things. Okay, great. This was a really expensive learning experience or that kind of thing. So, this podcast is called The Mess in the Middle, but I really feel like it should be just the mess all the time.
It is, cause well, yeah, you spend it every level is gonna bring challenges.
Yep.
Like I said, the goal is just to build a better toolbox so you
Yep.
don't see every challenge that you need a hammer. Everything needs to, "Oh, okay, so this situation is
Hmm.
about me, so I need access to coaches or therapists or books
Right.
or podcasts. I'm stuck. I'm the obstacle in
I'm
the way
stuck
here.
or
So
this.
let me work on that a little
Mhm.
bit versus, okay, my website's not converting, or my emails aren't working, or my social media is not connecting to
Mhm.
the right audience. Each one of these pieces will evolve as your business evolves. The person
That's
you are at the startup is not the same person you're going to be after you launch and you have customers, which
mhm.
is not going to be the same person when you start automating your business and hiring people. You
Yep.
have to be able to evolve along with this. It's not just
Oh, yeah.
marketing, it's the whole thing.
Oh,
So
yeah. Hiring someone the
buckle
first
up.
time took me so long. I was not ready.
But you
I
were
had to
so
become
ready.
I knew technically I needed it. Allison, wasn't ready.
Right.
And so then I needed to get myself ready.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. So dig in, you guys. All right,
No, for
Allison.
sure.
One last thing. What's one
Yeah.
more tip that you would share with folks that are kind of in this messy middle? They're completely overwhelmed by everything we just said. Like, oh my God, there's so many moving parts to this. Where do I start?
Oh, this is a really good question. You kind of threw me for this. Okay, hold on here. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you don't know how to fix things, okay? I really like what Audra just said about where is the problem coming from?
Yeah.
What's wrong? Identify that. What's wrong?
Okay.
Okay. And if you have to use 3 legal pads to write out a list, that's fine. But figure out what's wrong. And then you can figure out where that's coming from. Is it technical? Is it personal? Is it, do I need more people? Do I need to fix a process? Do I need to learn something? Do I need to do some mindset stuff? Do I need to have a big girl breakdown? What, right? What's wrong? And then you can start to fix it, because sometimes just listing out what's wrong
Hmm.
helps us get out of that
Loop.
lack of clarity that comes with overwhelm.
Yeah.
And because sometimes you're like, I'm just so overwhelmed, I just can't figure. And then, okay, what's wrong? Well, I have this copy due today, and I have this, and I have this. And okay, how can that be fixed?
Hmm.
It helps you just come down for a second.
Hmm. Well, it takes all that brain fog of overwhelm and
Hmm.
simplifies it. It's like, oh, okay, so that could be pushed till next week. Oh, yeah,
Exactly.
I don't actually need to do this right now. It's something I'd like to
Mhm.
do, but I don't need to do it. Okay,
Oh, we
that
all
goes
have
on a
those.
different task.
That's the
Okay, I
idea
was
book. Yep.
comparing myself to somebody else. Okay,
That's
I'm
a
not
me
going to
thing.
worry about that anymore.
Therapy
Right.
on Wednesday. Right. Right?
So,
Like, you can
yeah,
start
sort
to
through it.
sort through and find the ones you can solve now, the ones you can solve later. And then there's stuff on there that you're going to worry about. You don't need to be worrying about. Why are you stressing about this? One of the things that I've come to realize in my work with a lot of people is, well, and this is a whole nother podcast for another day, but they're like, oh, I'm in launch and my team needs to be on 24/7. And this, dude, it is online marketing. It is not the end of the world. Okay. If that email goes out tomorrow instead of right this very second, it's fine. Like, sometimes we get ourselves so worked up because we're
Yeah.
so in that place that everything is now an emergency. Trust me, as somebody who lives and dies by urgency, ADHD, I get it. But not everything's an emergency. And ultimately, neither is most of this,
Right.
right? Like, I'm writing copy. I'm not sewing brains back together. Like, it's not the end of the world.
There's an
No.
author, Byron Katie, that has
Hmm.
some great work out there about this.
Hmm.
It's an exercise that you do saying, is this true? Or is this my brain just rolling
Hmm.
out scenarios, what if scenarios? And it makes you
Yeah.
kind of sit and think, okay, wait a second. I'm just playing my fears creeping in. I'm just playing out this worst case scenario, but it's not happened.
Hmm.
And I'm focused on the wrong thing. So let me focus on what's actually happening right now, real
Right.
time. And
Yep.
she's got some really good stuff around just control, not necessarily controlling, but understanding where that fear, insecurities, or um,
Hmm. Yeah.
stress comes from when you're trying to make decisions.
And it all comes back to, again, something you said earlier, was managing yourself.
Yeah.
And that can either be your day-to-day life, managing yourself, or if you want to get off therapy, managing yourself.
Right.
And so both of those are equally important. How do you spend your time, and how does your brain spend its effort? Both of those are part of managing yourself. And sometimes you just need to bring yourself out of it so that you can get back into that
The Wild
rhythm.
West, man.
It's a good time out here. But you know what? I mean, we
Yeah.
talk about this as if it's like the most stressful thing in the world, and it totally is. But after this, I'm going to go feed my fish and hang
Yeah.
out by my pond for a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
so that's,
Perspective. It's all
it's
perspective.
and that's also something I do. I call it my Zen spot. It's part of my reset. Every day I go outside, I put my hands in
Good.
the dirt and find that,
Good.
because,
Grounding. Ground your energy back. Yeah.
well, it's one life and none of us get out of it alive. So is it really that big a deal?
Right. Right. All right, you guys. This was fun.
So
Welcome,
fun. Thank you.
welcome, welcome to what is to be coming for you.
That's right.
If you're in the startup phase from two veterans that have been around a long time, you can still love what you do. We develop better skills to get better at it and continue to evolve as humans. So thanks,
Absolutely.
Allison, for being here. This was fun.
Thanks. This was fun. These were great questions. It was a good conversation.
Good. All right, guys. Till next time. Keep
Bye.
moving through the middle.